Hi, it's William, welcome to FlySpoke, and I've been tying a bunch of dry flies up for Atlantic salmon fishing lately, and I get into color schemes and sizes. Basically, the one in the vise right now is a Chartreuse body with all white hackle and a tail and horns, fluorescent yellow, shell pink. Here's what's called a Labatt blue, Canuel dark olive with a badger hackle. All sorts of combinations depending upon where you're going fishing. And basically I'm just going to show you the basic tie and what you do with colors and sizes and lengths of the body and colors of the hackle, horns, no horns, single horn, split wing. All those things have to do with where you're going fishing. A bomber on Matane is different than a bomber on Matapedia, even though the headwaters are so close to each other. And certainly a bomber in Newfoundland is very, very different than one in Quebec. And if you saw New Brunswick versus what's used up in Nova Scotia, just totally different ties. Nothing is generic. Everything has to do with where you're going fishing. So I'm starting off with a very short shank dry fly hook in a size 6. And the reason is for this big wide gap. And I'm using a 140 denier Danville white thread. Use the white just so that it really gets massed in. And right in the front I'm just going to take some calf tail, and I'm going to start off by putting on my front wing. Horns, some people will call them horns. And I don't need to worry too much about getting this stacked. I just stack them by hand, look at them, and make sure that they're all the hairs are fairly close. There's no reason that you have to worry about it being real tight. The calf tail is a little tough to get tight anyway. And just pull out any that are super long. And I'm going to judge my height of my wing just by bending it up there, and I'll tie it on. I want to I have to make sure I leave some space in the front. And I'm going to come to the front and I'm just going to put a couple of wraps on and then back over onto the wing. Now I want to trim this on a slanted ramp angle towards the back. And trim off any of the really excess long stuff. And then I'm going to take another clump of the calf tail, and I'm going to make my tail itself. And I'm going to pre-trim this on an angle as well, so that when I tie it in, I'm going to lay one angle over the other. And what that's going to do is going to help me make the body fairly uniform. And I'll tie that to about right there, and just go back and even out the body. Make sure your wing is on the top nicely. And now I'm going to use for this one some fluorescent Chartreuse for the body. And this is deer body hair. It's the best hair. It'll be called spinning hair. And just take off the tips. Leave it fairly long, but take off the tips. It's easier to leave it long for spinning the next one on. And I'm making two really loose wraps, and loose, I spin it right around the shank of the hook and make sure the whole thing comes with me. And now I'll take it right here and I'll just put my fingers in the back over the tail and I'll pack this, pushing it back. Doesn't have to be a real severe push. Then bring your thread in front of that clump. And we're going to put on another clump. And I trim off the tips. And do your best not to catch your thread in the previous clump. If you catch your thread in the previous clump, the clump you're working on won't spin properly. And I bring it in from the front of the fly and move it towards the back, and then spin it on and pack it back. Now the tighter you push, of course, the tighter the pack's going to be, but it doesn't need to be super packed. You'll get the hang of how much packing to do after you do a couple of these. You'll see that loose isn't such a bad thing. Okay, right around. It spins on nicely. Okay. Pack again. And now you have to make a judgment as to how much quantity you need for your last pack. Sometimes it'll take only 3 packs. This particular one's going to take a small amount, smaller quantity on a final pack right behind the wing. And I spin it on. Okay, I lift the wing up and just put a couple of wraps right in front there just to have your thread. And now we start shaping the body. You go big cuts at first. Watch out for your thread. Your thread will get tangled up in there, but just be careful with your thread. I'll get my basic body shape going, right? And then I'll switch scissors and go to a much finer pair of curved scissors. And I'll just start taking out Okay, so when you think the shape is decent enough and you've had enough of the trimming, what we're going to do is we're going to lift this wing in the front, just lift it up in the air, and I'm going to put some wraps right in under and facing towards it. And what that's going to do, I'm going to lift the wing up in the air. Okay, now if I just take my thread and go straight up in the air, pull the wing back, and just try to divide the wing in as close to half as you can, go over. I'm just going to do simple figure eights now. Over and over. What I get is split wing. Okay, so some of these flies, they have the straight wing coming out the front. Some of them have the split wing. Some of them don't have any wing. All depends on where you're fishing, and these flies are very different when tied for Newfoundland or Quebec or New Brunswick. They're very, very different. The way the people tie them is altogether different. And now I'm going to take my white thread and I'm going to bury it in and move to the back. And just shake it back and forth to bury it in. And for this one, you could use a brown hackle. Certainly could just take a brown dry fly hackle and put that on there. That would look pretty good. Many years ago I made a mistake and I tied a bunch of these up with a white hackle, and I was young to it, and they were supposed to have brown hackles. Well, I tied them with the white hackle. The white hackle took fish. So I tie them both ways now. I'll tie them, here's the Labatt Blue with the brown hackle. So I do them both ways. And I'm just going to tie this in. I'm going to bury in the stem to the deer hair. Take this and come to the front and stand this up a little further. Okay. Now I go once around and I slightly went towards the back and then right over, and now everything is moving forward. That first wrap there, I just made it so it completed a loop on the wrap. And I'm right behind the wing right now, multiples, and now I'm going to jump to right in under the wing, lifting it up, pushing this right underneath the wing. And I only want a couple of wraps. I don't want to clog up too much in the front. Tie it off, pull everything back, and I'm going to tie off the white. Okay, so there's the white tied off. Snip the thread, take off the end of the hackle. Alright. Okay, next I'm going to basically do a little trick here. And you can use a piece of plastic, get a piece of heavy plastic, just punch a hole in it. I'm using a, going to be tying these up pretty soon, these articulated fish skull. They come in different lengths. They're pretty interesting. Attach hooks to them, build a body, and create articulated flies. But all I did was I popped a hole through here, and I take it and I put it right on the front of my fly like this, and just push it back a little bit, and all the material went behind it. Just take your black thread. I'm going to start it right behind the eye. Make sure I'm not covering the eye at all. And you get the idea on this thing. It works. I'm going to create some permanent ones for myself made out of rubber discs, or cone shaped possibly, that'll go right over the fly. And that keeps all my hackle completely out of the way. Because that's always a difficult job for me, doing this final head work and accidentally just grabbing that few little parts of the feather that accidentally get caught, and it's like so frustrating for me when I catch one in there. And there, I did it. Snip your thread tight, pull this off. Yeah, I just pick it out, put the hairs where I want. And we'll just put a little bit of head cement now on the very light head cement. I don't use the heavy stuff for this. It's the Chartreuse bomber. There it is.